Welcome to the Freak Show, fellow freaks.
I am Matthew Brockmeyer.
And I am Christa Carmen.
And this is
Murder Coaster.
Welcome back to Ghost October. And as the veil between the living and the dead gets thinner and Halloween draws closer, we bring you the ultimate ghost-busting duo, the distinctly American story of the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine. Part valiant paranormal investigators, part carnival-sideshow hucksters. Yes, the valorous Christian superheroes of the supernatural, demonic, and otherworldly, battling demons and hunting down ghosts, saving the world from Satan himself. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Woohoo, that's quite the introduction. Let's begin. Prologue. The Spooky Cash Cow. The horror film franchise that composes the Conjuring universe was launched in 2013, and so far has made over $2.6 billion. For those of you in the back who may not have heard me, let me repeat. That is $2.6 billion, making it easily the most successful horror film franchise in history. To put it in perspective, the Halloween film franchise, which has been churning out films since the 70s, has only made a third of that, earning just $700 million.
Crazy. And the protagonists of this film series, who are portrayed as Catholic superheroes battling demons and the devil himself, are, of course, Ed and Lorraine Warren, demonologists and paranormal investigators who gained fame and infamy in the 70s and 80s for their work in numerous famous hauntings, including the Amityville Horror House, the Enfield Poltergeist, and the Smurl haunting.
When the first film, The Conjuring, was made, Lorraine Warren was hired as a consultant. She was often on the set, made a cameo, and declared the film to be accurate and truthful, saying she didn't let director James Wan take any dramatic license that wasn't necessary.
But as many of you surely know, it was far, far from truthful. As we discussed way back in episode 35, Bathsheba Sherman and the truth behind the Conjuring haunting.
And quite interestingly, after the film's release, it came to light that Lorraine had it written into her contract for the Conjuring film series that she and Ed could not be portrayed engaging in extramarital affairs or engaging in crimes like sex with a minor or seeking out prostitutes.
I found this extremely odd, as stipulations like this are very rarely put into a movie contract, especially biopics about staunch Christians fighting against evil. And soon numerous scandalous accusations would bloom up, leaving the world to wonder just who were Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Were they Christian soldiers fighting against Lucifer's infernal army of darkness?
Or were they charlatans, hucksters, carnies promoting a circus sideshow of the paranormal and demonic, or even worse, sexual predators?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into it.
Chapter 1. Little Eddie and Lorraine.
Edward Warren Miney was born September 7th, 1926, in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Yes, his original name was Miney. Why or when he changed his surname to his middle name is unknown to us, though we have searched and searched. Just part of the enigma and mystery that is Ed Warren. But I did learn that the name Miney is Irish and is derived from the Gaelic term for big and soft, which may have been a foreboding to his later years as a man of great girth.
Ed's father was a state trooper who, according to Ed, was such a staunch Catholic he went to Mass every single day. Sounds like a real slog. Never missing a single day.
It's so extreme, dude. I mean, you didn't miss one single day, really? Not one day? Ever? Come on.
Yeah, that's wild. And Ed's grandfather, his father's father, was also incredibly pious. So much so that when he died, he gave his entire life savings to the church, who then bought a stained glass window of St. Michael with the money.
So, in the Catholic Church, St. Michael is considered an archangel who battled against Satan, defeating him and ejecting him from paradise. And Michael is the patron saint of exorcists.
Do you know I did not have any idea that there was a patron saint of exorcists?
This is a very educational show.
It's very interesting. In the ancient Jewish text, the Book of Enoch, Michael is listed as one of the 7 archangels and mentioned in the Bible 5 times, 4 passing mentions in the Old Testament and once in Revelation, which says, quote,
"Then war broke out in heaven. Michael and his angels battled against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back, but they did not prevail, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The huge dragon, the ancient serpent, who is called the devil, and Satan, who deceived the whole world, was thrown down to earth, and his angels were thrown down with him."
Ed loved the Book of Revelation, which is like a demonic horror comic. And we can see Ed as a very small child, as his mind is first developing, staring up at this stained glass window that's a product of his grandfather's life's work, an epic battle against the devil. This here is certainly a key to the formation of his mind and thinking, and he would later say that the only way to understand his beliefs was through the Catholic Church and their understanding of demons.
But while Ed loved demons, and always would, his first big true love was ghosts.
Ed claims he saw his first ghost when he was 5 years old. It was the apparition of his former landlady, stepping out from a dark closet, frowning and mean-eyed, draped in a transparent shroud.
Ed described her in life as, quote, "a spinster who didn't like kids," saying that she'd sit by the window and actually wait for him to do something wrong. And when he did, she'd come flying out of the house, screaming at him like a mad woman.
This woman had obviously become some kind of boogeyman to little Ed, and was now lurking in his closet, literally haunting him. But it's no surprise a child would find a mean ghost in his closet. The closet is a source of fear to many children, like a dark and hidden subconscious.
Ed attended Catholic school and said that he was always extremely interested whenever the priests and nuns would discuss the devil. So we can see this dark fascination with ghosts and demons just festering in his little mind.
Ed also says he had vivid dreams of being visited by his aunt, who was a nun, whom he'd never met and had died the year before he was born.
During one of these dreams, the ghostly specter of his aunt nun came to him and said,
"Edward, you will tell many priests it's the right road to go down. But you yourself will never be a priest.
And she was right. Meanwhile, just 3 blocks away, on January 31st, 1927, little Lorraine Rita Moran was born to a, quote, dignified Irish family. I guess they had to add dignified before Irish to separate the Morans from all the undignified Irish families out there.
Lorraine claims she was born with the gift of clairvoyance, the ability to see beyond physical time and place, a talent she assumed everyone had as a child.
It wasn't until Lorraine was 12 years old that she realized that the outside world looked down on such paranormal talents.
She was attending an all-girls Catholic school, and it was Arbor Day, and she was watching as a tree was planted. And little Lorraine was able to envision the tree in the future, fully grown with branches reaching into the sky. And a nun asked her,
"Are you seeing into the future, little girl?"
When Lorraine confirmed that yes, she was divining events to come, she was sent off to a retreat home and forced to pray for days straight.
Which brings us to a very interesting dilemma when it comes to Lorraine's clairvoyant gifts and the Catholic Church. Traditionally, clairvoyance is seen as witchcraft by the Catholic Church.
Going into trances to commune with the dead, holding seances, all these things Lorraine would do later in her life are seen as contrary to respecting and loving God and placing one's trust in God alone, as stated in section 2116 of the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And furthermore, it goes directly against the Bible, as it plainly states in Deuteronomy 18:11 that it is a sin to be a, quote, medium or spiritist who consults the dead.
It's very weird to me that the Catholic Church would not only later condone her being a medium who consulted with the dead, but encourage the Warrens, bring them into their fold, and actively work with them. But I guess it drummed up business, brought the church money and lots of followers, and in the end, I guess, money talks and the Bible walks.
Chapter 2. The Movie Theater.
Stay away from that old Viper man. Don't you take that fruit he's holding in his hand. Just one bite and you'll be swinging with the band. If you hang around that old Viper man.
As a teenager, Ed worked as both a lifeguard and an usher at the Bridgeport Movie Theater.
It was 1944, and Ed was a slender, charming fellow with a warm smile, and Lorraine's friends thought they'd make a perfect match.
But Lorraine wasn't interested. As she says,
I didn't have any interest in boys. I was concentrating on my schoolwork. And besides, boys were too rough around the edges for me.
But Lorraine's friends brought her to the movie theater to meet this charming, dark-eyed boy anyway. And when Lorraine first laid eyes on Ed Warren, she thought to herself, quote,
Gee, what a nice-looking young man. And he smelled like Noxzema.
I don't know, does the smell of Noxzema really work on attracting girls?
I can't even, I have, a pretty good smell to brain, recall ability. I can't even, think of what it smells like.
It's medicinal smelling, isn't it?
Yeah, okay.
Maybe it was a 40s thing. He just smelled clean to her, I guess. I guess he would put it on his skin when he worked as a lifeguard.
After the movie ended, charming and vivacious young Ed, ever the gentleman, offered to walk the girls home, telling them he'd buy them a Coke along the way, and they all piled into a drugstore and to the soda fountain bar.
Lorraine's friends all ordered sodas, which cost a nickel. But Lorraine, she ordered an ice cream soda, which cost a dime.
Always pushing the limits, that Lorraine, as Ed would later say.
I knew right then she was a gold digger.
Thinking it would be inappropriate to be seen having Ed bring her home, Lorraine said she would walk the rest of the way alone, and Ed politely obliged, darting across the street to his own house. And as Lorraine would recall years later, when he ran across the street, I didn't see the slender young man of 16. I psychically saw Ed as a grown man, a man that I would marry. In fact, when I returned home that evening, I wrote in my diary, "Today I met the man I am going to marry."
Oh, but divination is a sin, Lorraine. And spells that tell you who you're going to marry can land you in hot water. In fact, it was this very act, using an egg in water to divine your future husband, that was the catalyst for the Salem witch trials. Lorraine definitely would have been burned at the stake back in the day.
As World War II raged, Ed Warren, being a gung-ho patriot and red-blooded all-American boy, joined the Navy, supposedly on his 17th birthday. But like so much regarding the Warrens, when you start doing the math, the dates don't always add up, and they often contradict themselves.
So Ed says that just 4 months after joining the Navy, on February 5th, 1945, and yeah, if you do the math here, you'll see Ed would be nearly 19 at this point and hadn't just turned 17. But anyway, well, on February 5th, 1945, terrible tragedy occurred when the ship Ed was stationed on, the Spring Hill, which was carrying 120,000 gallons of gasoline, was struck by a Panamanian oil tanker, causing a huge explosion.
Ed says the event happened far out in the northern Atlantic, claiming it was utter chaos, and as the vessel was engulfed in flames, the men were ordered to abandon ship and began leaping overboard into the icy, shark-infested waters.
Ed says he was surrounded by fire and watched as men were eaten alive by sharks. But Ed selflessly worked at saving his fellow soldiers and was nearly abandoned there in the water. But by the power of prayer, he was saved.
The problem with this story is, while it is true that the Spring Hill was struck by another vessel and did tragically explode, killing 19, Ed claimed it happened far out in the ocean. And a simple Google search will tell you that the Spring Hill shipwreck actually happened in the New York harbor, and that the boat wasn't at sea at all. It was anchored about 1,000 yards off of Staten Island.
And there were no shark attacks. There's a website which lists every shark attack in New York State going back to the 1800s, and there were none listed during the 40s, and none at all listed by Staten Island. In fact, shark attacks in New York State are rare, and in New York Harbor are extremely rare. Multiple sailors being devoured alive by sharks in a single night would have been huge news.
Ed most likely had watched the movie Jaws, where the true story of the USS Indianapolis was discussed.
The USS Indianapolis had been on a top-secret mission to deliver components for the nuclear bomb when it was struck by a Japanese torpedo in the Philippine Sea on July 30th, 1945, leaving 900 men stranded in the sea for 4 days, hundreds of whom were eaten alive by sharks as they bobbed in the water. You know the thing about a shark, he's got lifeless eyes. Black eyes like a doll's eyes. And when he comes at you, doesn't seem to be living until he bites ya.
But after the shipwreck of the Spring Hill, so the story goes, Ed was given 30 days survivor's leave. And it was during this leave that Ed and Lorraine were married.
Aw, yay. And Ed then went back to the Navy, and while he was serving his country, Lorraine gave birth to their only child, a daughter named Judy.
And 6 months later, when the war ended, Ed came home and saw his daughter for the first time.
And just for the record, for those who have only seen later photographs of them, at this time they were quite the attractive couple. Ed was very thin with a thick head of hair and dark eyes, and Lorraine would wear her hair down. She hadn't adopted that very uptight, prim Victorian look yet, with her hair all pulled back.
After the war, Ed attended Perry Art School, which is a subsidiary of Yale, for a while hoping to be a painter. But as he said,
I got fed up with that. I told Lorraine one day, you know, I can paint better than these instructors. What they're teaching me is a lot of geometry and a lot of nonsense that I don't need for painting. We'll have some fun. So I bought a car for $15, which I still have in the yard. It's a 1933 Chevy Eagle Deluxe. The guy gave me 2 wheels with it. I had to pay him off over time, $5 a week. I said to Lorraine, you know, if we go up to the new areas where they're opening up for tourists, like Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, I'll bet I can take a bunch of my paintings and put them out there where people are walking by and we'll sell some. We were making a fantastic living, selling the paintings for fabulous prices. $3, $4. But you gotta remember one thing. Hot dogs were a dime, hamburgers were a dime, the movie theater was a quarter, gas was 18 cents a gallon. So when you made $5 on a painting, you were doing pretty damn good.
and it was through painting that the Warrens became involved in ghost hunting, as Lorraine explained. You see, we needed a subject to paint, a good subject, something people could relate to. Well, haunted houses proved to be that subject. Ed would find a haunted house written up in the newspaper, or get a lead on one from the locals in town. Then we'd drive to the site in our old Chevy.
And so it was that the Warrens began their ghost investigations. Lorraine says that despite knowing she was a clairvoyant from a young age, she didn't believe in ghosts at first. And she would say to him,
Oh, Ed, there's no such thing as ghosts.
but they were young and adventurous, and Ed was filled with passion for all things creepy, ghostly, spooky, and demonic, which, come on, you gotta love. I'm the same way. So they'd head out. As Ed would later explain, we were just kids. Nobody was just going to let us in. So I'd go out in the middle of the road where they could all see me, and I'd start to sketch the house. And you'd see the curtains going back and forth. What's this kid doing? They would be thinking. I would do a really nice sketch of the house, with ghosts coming out of it. And I'd give it to Lorraine. She'd go knock on the door, and her Irish personality, she'd say,
Oh, my husband loves to sketch and paint haunted houses, and he made this for you.
So, pretty wild stuff. And you know, you can find these paintings, pictures of them online. And I hate to be an art snob. You know, I know all art is subjective and everything, but to me personally, they're bad. They're quite bad. Very bad, in fact. Extremely childlike. And the supernatural elements are just so over the top. There's bats flying around and ghosts that look like sheets with eye holes cut out, and even witches flying on brooms.
Yeah, I think when you sent me a picture of one in DM, I think I just said, yikes.
Yeah,
That was
totally.
like my only, I just said, oh God. For 5 years, the Warrens drove around the country painting haunted houses from Iowa to Texas.
I love that. They're like free spirit beatnik artists in a way, just roaming across the country, painting, expressing themselves. Part Scooby-Doo, part Jack Kerouac.
While Ed and Lorraine romped around the country chasing specters, they left the raising of their daughter to the grandparents.
Like beatniks did too. I hate to say it.
Jeez. Despite what they show in the movies, the Warrens' daughter Judy would spend very little time with them. At first, it was their traveling and investigation. Then, as they began to collect creepy artifacts for their occult museum, she was actually too scared to stay in their house.
And there was the stigma as well. Ghost hunting, divining the past and future, communicating with spirits. It was all kind of frowned upon at the time. And when Judy asked her father, Ed, what she should tell her friends he did for a living, he just told her, tell them I'm a landscape painter.
As we said, at first Lorraine was an unbeliever. As she herself would later say, "In the beginning, I was more than a bit wary of the people with whom we spoke. I thought they were kind of suffering from overactive imaginations, or were just making things up to get attention. In fact, some of the things people told us sounded completely outlandish. But over the course of time, I began to become convinced."
And during this time, Ed took meticulous notes and read every book on the subject of ghosts he could find. As Lorraine would say,
in addition to painting, Ed was fully engaged in field research, all the while making notes on where the books were wrong.
As Ed would later say about this matter, most people seem to think ghosts lurk around in the upstairs of old homes in a misty, vaporous state. But this is not so. In order to be seen with the physical eye, the ghost or apparition needs physical energy to manifest and engages in a complex process of energy transference to give itself substance. And the Adam's rib of most ghostly manifestations is the human aura, a bioluminescent glow caused by a natural discharge of energy from the body. From this bioluminescent glow, or aura, the ghost draws small amounts of energy, which collect as an orb. The light energy combined with heat and electromagnetic energy is what the human spirit uses to manifest.
Lorraine further posits that electromagnetic energy is drawn from the aura in golf ball-sized lumps and, quote, merges into a ball the size of a grapefruit, which then elongates into a tall cigar shape of the human size. Within this tall bioluminescent glow, the definable features of a person will begin to emerge until the spirit has manifested as much as it possibly can. To be accurate, by the way, it's called a ghost if the features are not recognizable to the viewer. If the features are recognizable, it's an apparition. Either way, though, you've got a visitor.
As Ed points out, though, the spirit's appearance depends entirely on how that particular spirit sees itself in its own mind.
Which brings about the obvious question. Do spirits have a mind? Some kind of ephemeral brain?
It is a good question. And if the appearance of a ghost depends on how the spirit sees itself, I'm gonna be one damn good-looking ghost, I tell you what. Come on, we're having fun here, right?
Ed also explains that a person who meets a tragic end carries a negative attitude and blames God, causing spiteful ghosts, which can bring about physical and psychological effects that can lead to illness, injury, or even death.
Chapter 3. All Dolled Up. Nesper and Annabelle.
As Lorraine's skepticism about ghosts began to fade, and she realized her psychic abilities and began to hone them, the two forged a dynamic paranormal investigation team.
Lorraine would use her clairvoyant powers to reach beyond the veil and see what led to the hauntings and attempt to communicate with the spirits, while Ed, using his vast knowledge of the paranormal and his fearless heroism to call out the ghosts, confront them, and offer Lorraine spiritual backup in the form of prayer and robust, red-blooded machismo.
And at some point, Lorraine became an actual trance medium, going into a trance in order to communicate with the dead, which, again, is specifically frowned upon by the Catholic Church.
But what are you going to do? You can't make a ghost omelet without breaking a few eggs.
Hear, hear, man. So in 1952, they officially made their home the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR, one of New England's oldest ghost hunting groups. And as New England is said to be one of the most haunted places in the world, they were quite the busy beavers.
And they set to work creating a museum in their basement that would document their work with actual artifacts and objects deemed too evil to be free in the world, and that must be kept under spiritual lock and key.
And of course, the absolute most famous of these artifacts is the Raggedy Ann doll known as Annabelle.
So when I was a little kid in the 6th grade, my friend Andrew Salisbury had the book, The Demonologist, an old battered paperback, and man, I tell you what, that book scared the living shit out of me, especially the pictures of that Raggedy Ann doll, all locked up in a glass case. And, I don't know why in the movies they went with the creepy and horrifying porcelain doll. To me, the Raggedy Ann is so much more spooky. It's like the banality of it. That wide-eyed, goofy smile. Almost like a Manson family girl. Too happy. Too sweet. I mean, I know Raggedy Ann is copyrighted, but they could have come up with a cloth-stuffed doll that more closely resembled it. What do you think? Do you think that they should have kept the more Raggedy
I do think
doll?
that particular porcelain doll was very good and remarkably creepy.
But too creepy.
Yeah. I'm thinking of the movie The Boy, and when you have a doll with even less features. The Annabelle doll in the movies has very distinct those rosy cheeks. They could have almost airbrushed her a little bit and had it be a bit more of that uncanny valley feel.
Yeah, like Michael Myers.
Yeah,
shape.
right. But I don't know. I do like the doll in the movies.
Do you?
I think. Yeah, I do. At some point in either 1968 or 1970 or 1971, all those years are thrown around, but the official NESPR website says 1968, so we'll go with that date. In 1968, ghost hunters Ed and Lorraine were in the office when the phone rang. And Ed answered.
Hello, this is Ed Warren, demonologist, with New England Society for Psychic Research. How may we help you today?
It's just like Ghostbusters, right? Got one!
On the other line was a priest who said there were 2 young nurses who'd been attacked by a possessed doll named Annabelle.
Ed and Lorraine were asked to investigate and recommend if any formal church action should be taken. And they were on it, sliding down the fireman's pole, racing out the door, bringing a tape recorder, camera, and a black attaché case filled with religious objects to protect them from evil.
The doll was owned by a woman named Deidre Bernard. Now, sometimes this woman is called Donna, and like we said, the official Nesper website lists this as happening in 1968, though it's often stated that it was given as a birthday present in 1970. But on an episode of Seekers of the Supernatural, Ed claimed that Deirdre had received the gift in 1971 as a Christmas present. So Deirdre, Donna, birthday present, Christmas present, 68, 70, 71, whatever. Somehow this lady ended up with this extra large Raggedy Ann doll that was causing all kinds of trouble.
After receiving the doll, Deidre started to notice that it would be in a different position than the one she left it in. She would place the doll on her bed with its arms off to its side and its legs straight before leaving for work. When she came home, the doll's arms would be folded on its lap and its legs would be crossed at the ankles.
Spooky. Then Deirdre would come home and find the thing not only in a different position, but in a completely different room from where she had left it.
And it wasn't just Deidre who was starting to notice the strange happenings that surrounded the doll, but her roommate as well, a fellow nurse called Laura, sometimes called Angie.
Oh, Laura, Angie, it's like, oh my goodness, the inconsistencies. One night, they came home from work to find the doll kneeling in a chair by the front door. An impossible position, as the rag doll's stuffed legs couldn't possibly hold her up like that.
And then came the notes. Deirdre and Laura, or Donna and Angie, whatever their names are, would come home to find handwritten notes with writing which resembled that of a small child on parchment paper, with messages saying, "Help us," and "Help Cal." Cal being Laura's fiance, Cal Randall, though he's sometimes called Lou. Hey, what's in a name? A rose by any name would smell so sweet. Am I right or am I right?
Right. Why are names important at all when trying to discuss something that maybe happened? Like, talk about some good evidence for this. But, hey, who am I to say? Oh well, upon searching the apartment, no parchment paper or even a pencil, which is what the messages appeared to be written in, could be found. Ed would later say, quote,
"I tore that apartment apart looking for parchment paper." Which really? Can you see this guy tearing these girls' apartment apart looking for parchment paper? Where's that goddamn parchment paper? I know there's some parchment paper here. And he offers this as definitive proof of the supernatural, that there was no parchment paper there. Therefore, it had to be a ghost or demonic entity. Which, come on, the paper had to come from somewhere.
Then, on Christmas, a mysterious chocolate boot was discovered on top of their stereo.
How this is proof of supernatural activity is kind of beyond me. It sounds gross to me. a big hunk of unwrapped chocolate laying there like a cat turd or something.
Then Deirdre/Donna came home one night to find blood on the back of the doll's hand, along with 3 drops of blood on its chest. And she knew she had to do something, so she contacted a medium.
But again, while Ed says this in the book The Demonologist, in a later interview, he claims what actually happened was that Deirdre would bring the doll out and put it in a chair. And one day, it started raising its hands in the air on its own. And it was this that freaked out the 2 nurses so badly that they called a medium.
Either way, a medium was contacted to get to the bottom of this haunted doll, leaving parchment paper notes and hunks of chocolate everywhere.
A seance was held, and the medium managed to make contact with the spirit dwelling in the doll. A spirit that identified itself as a 7-year-old child named Annabelle Higgins.
Annabelle explained that when she was alive, she used to play in the fields where the girls' apartment complex now stood, and that it was also in this field where she had been murdered.
When asked why she had chosen the 2 nurses, Annabelle stated that due to their younger age, she thought they might be more inclined to want to play with her, and that's why she started moving their doll about.
While this is the origin provided in the Warrens' book, Ed would once again contradict himself on the Seekers of the Supernatural interview, giving a completely different version, stating that Annabelle had been a 6-year-old girl who was killed in an automobile accident just outside the girls' apartment.
But whatever, details schmeetails. The spirit that had identified itself as Annabelle Higgins wanted permission to possess the Raggedy Ann doll, and the girls gave it. They told the ghost of the little girl that she was welcome to hang out in their doll as long as she liked.
As explained by Ed, this should have been the first clue to the girls that the spirit was not actually who or what it claimed to be. For God does not allow the soul of a child to enter a doll.
Where did he get that? God does not allow the soul of a child to enter a doll. Is that in the Bible or something? Anyway.
Oh my goodness.
So the young nurses started talking to the doll, buying it clothes and jewelry, taking it out with them, partying with it, going to the nightclubs. And you know what the worst part of it all was? That damn doll never paid for its own drugs. Not once.
And now that they had invited the evil spirit into their lives, the supernatural activity only increased. Knocking sounds came from within the walls, followed by the lights flickering on and off, and the sound of otherworldly whispering. Their beds would shake as they tried to sleep, and the apartment would become icy cold. And every night the girls would come home to find the doll standing in the front entrance, waiting for them to return.
She was probably all ready to hit the clubs.
And Lara's fiance, Cal or Lou, depending on which version of the story you go by, said that, quote,
I didn't like the doll, and the doll didn't like me right back. The thing's got a mind, and dolls don't have minds, right? So from the beginning, I didn't think this thing moving around the apartment was cute.
He repeatedly asked the girls to throw it away, even suggesting they burn it, as it was obviously evil.
Well, that shit seriously pissed off Annabelle. She wasn't going to have this Cal character talking shit about her. So she began to invade his dreams.
Cal began dreaming about the creepy Raggedy Ann doll at night. Dreaming that the Raggedy Ann doll, and you really gotta picture this with the Raggedy Ann doll, he dreamed she would glide up his body, her red yarn hair gilded by moonlight, moving slowly across his legs, tickling his bare thighs, her large, glimmering black button eyes fixed on him as she curled her legs around his waist, straddling him with that puckered smirk on her cloth face, the tiny rosebud lips fixed on either side by a drawn black smile. And as Cal watched in terror, the old rag doll, quote,
put its 2 arms out. One touched the side of my neck. Then the other touched the other side, like it was making an electrical connection. Then I was being strangled. I was writhing and trying to push the doll off my chest, but I might as well have been pushing on a wall because it wouldn't move. I was literally strangling to death, but I couldn't help myself, no matter how hard I tried.
Cal couldn't thwart it from its murderous intent as the grip on his throat grew tighter and tighter and tighter until he woke up in a sheen of sweat.
It's kind of strangely erotic and interesting because the doll has no fingers at all.
Ed would claim this happened in Cal's apartment sometimes. Other times he would claim it actually happened in the girl's apartment, saying it happened as Cal slept on the couch and the doll stared at him from a chair. And in this version that takes place in the girl's apartment, Ed adds that Cal awoke to find marks on his neck, then walked over to where the doll was sitting and picked it up, hurling it across the room and shouting, quote, "You're nothing but a rag doll. You couldn't hurt anyone." You want to hear a really funny aside? And this is actually, so Julia Rios is a good friend of mine, and she's a well-known editor. She just won the Shirley Jackson Award this year for her editing work. She's like super fun and has this really, I don't think she has it anymore, but she had this really fun podcast, and it was called This Is Why We're Like This. And she would interview like her horror, sci-fi, dark fantasy, like weirdo friends, and ask them to recall like some crazy ass movie that they watched or show or whatever as a youth that they think like may or may not have contributed to like them being a weirdo and liking like spooky, creepy, dark, horror, horrific things. So she and I are friends. So like I had told her this already. And when I told her it, she was like, you need to come on my podcast. And what we talk about in the episode is the movie, it's called Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure. Did you ever see this movie? This animated
like a
Raggedy
cartoon?
Ann?
I think I
It's
have.
a cartoon,
Yes.
Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure. And it is so goddamn trippy and weird. Like, so weird. And then weirdly, for a dance recital, I did a like dance number to it. And then like me and my sister wanted to be in a talent show. We were like little. We wanted to be in a talent show and like do a dance number. And my mom was like, well, I'm not a choreographer, so like I don't know what dance number you're gonna do. So I ended up teaching my sister like parts of this dance number that we had done from this movie, Raggedy Ann and Andy, A Musical Adventure. And the song is called I'm Just a Rag Dolly. And when we just said like, when he hurls it across the room and shouts, "You're nothing but a rag doll," like that whole musical number just came back to my head. It's so creepy. You have to listen to it, but I will give you a little teaser right now. It's like this like fever dream on the screen, and then the lyrics are like, I'm just a rag dolly, happy and shining all day, a little rag dolly. And it's just like so creepy. But like it goes to like, now I'm picturing like Raggedy Ann is creepy. I think I'm gonna go back totally on what I said before. And yes, Ragdoll or Raggedy Ann out creeps the porcelain Annabelle dolls. I've changed my mind now that I've like remembered all that backstory.
You're like a Manson girl, like bright-eyed and smiley. You're like, there's something, it doesn't look right. You're too happy,
Yeah, totally.
Well, after throwing that rag doll across the room, you know what happened? 7 scratches appeared across his chest.
Again, from the doll that has no fingers.
Yeah.
Then one of the living room chairs rolled across the room by itself, and pictures began to fall off the walls, shattering onto the floor.
And in yet another version of how Cal got these strange marks, all three of them had heard strange sounds coming from Deirdre's room. So they crept to the door, pushed it open, to find the room empty, except for Annabelle, sitting in the corner, smiling back at them, her black button eyes glimmering.
And it was then that the scratches mysteriously ripped down his chest, much like the scratches you see in the movie The Exorcist, which had come out right around this time that Ed started telling this story. And Ed would often compare events to the movie, mentioning it several times in the book The Demonologist.
Yeah, they mention it over and over in the book. And they almost talk about the movie like it's an artifact of reality. You know what I mean? So like when things would happen like that movie, it was like proof that it was real for some reason.
So weird.
I watched it again last night. It's such a good movie.
Like the original Exorcist you did?
Yeah.
Nice. That's
And I
could
also
rewatch
watched The
that.
Entity, because we'll get into The Entity next week.
Okay.
Mysteriously, though, the very next day, the scratches were completely gone, as if they had never been there to begin with.
And that is when the girls decided to contact an Episcopal priest they knew named Father Kevins, who took this phone call about a haunted doll that attacked her friend and haunted his dreams with erotic asphyxiation very, very seriously.
As Deirdre would supposedly later say,
At first, we were afraid he might not believe us, but he believed us all right. He said he'd never heard of such a thing happening these days.
and the priest knew he was not a match for this haunted doll business, and immediately called a higher priest, who called in the experts, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
The first thing the Warrens informed them of was that an exorcism would have to be performed on the apartment, for the thing they willingly invited into their lives was not the ghost of a dead child named Annabelle Higgins, but something demonic.
Yeah, we're going to get into it in the next episode, but during this time period in the early 70s, suddenly everything shifted from ghosts to demons with Ed and Lorraine.
The Warrens informed the girls that the entity had tricked them into giving it recognition, and it had used that to exploit them.
The Warrens also informed them that calling in a medium was a big mistake, for this had allowed the evil spirit to provide them false information and to trick them into making their biggest mistake of all, giving it permission to reside within the doll.
The Warrens warned the girls that although the entity was currently manipulating the doll, its endgame was the three of them. The attempted strangling and the scratches across Cal's chest were just the beginning. Ed informing them, quote,
Had their spirit been given another week or two, you all would have been killed.
So Ed called the Episcopal priest and told him, Yep, we got an infestation. This place is lousy with an ancient and malevolent and human minion of the devil. So get down here right away and bring all your exorcism gear. There's going to be an exorcism tonight.
When the priest arrived and began to talk with Ed, the priest was in absolute awe of Ed's vast knowledge of demonology and said to him,
How did you know such a spirit is behind the disturbance?
And Ed said back to him, and this is an actual quote from the book, The Demonologist. Well, in this case, it wasn't all that difficult to determine. The spirits work in characteristic ways. What's going on here is essentially the infestation stage of the phenomenon. A spirit, in this case an inhuman demonic spirit, began moving the doll around the apartment through teleportation and other means. Beyond the activity, Lorraine has also discerned that this inhuman spirit is with us now. Lorraine's an excellent clairvoyant, and she's never been wrong about the nature of a spirit that's present. However, if you want to go a step further, we can challenge the entity right now with religious provocation. Then you'll be able to see it for yourself.
No, the priest said. Let's just do what has to be done. No provocation. And unfortunately, unlike some of the other exorcisms we've covered with Ed and Lorraine, this one was totally boring.
Maybe because it was an Episcopalian exorcism and not a Catholic one. Just like a boring, stodgy old English thing. I don't know why the demon didn't put up a fight, but the priest just exorcised each room and the girls and cow, and that was it. But it's absolutely bonkers that Ed would offer to provoke it and get it pissed off so that the priest could actually see it.
So after the exorcism, Ed and Lorraine deemed the doll too dangerous to remain in the apartment and took it with them, placing it in the back seat of the car.
The weird thing is that Ed repeatedly states that a demon can't possess a doll or live within it. That the demon was actually just moving the doll around to make the girls think that it was in it. But then he totally contradicts himself by later locking the doll up. I don't know. I'm sure he has some crazy psychobabble to explain all this. It's a cursed object or something. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, on the way home, the car repeatedly would stall at dangerous moments, causing the power steering and brakes to go out. But Ed, thinking quickly, would turn and douse the evil Raggedy Ann doll with holy water and make the sign of the cross over it, and the car would immediately gain power again. I don't know why our listeners cannot see, but in recording this, I had to make the sign of the cross to be like the way Ed would do it in the car. And the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost, banish the evil from the Raggedy Ann doll with the holy water.
It was a close one. Good job, Ed. Once back home, Ed placed the doll in a chair by his desk, as one does with a demonically infested Raggedy Ann doll. Hanging out with it while you're working. Maybe share a cigarette with it. Tell it a few raunchy jokes. And the old Annabelle doll would often levitate, cruise around the house, showing up in various rooms.
And this is so cute. Annabelle had a friend, a black cat that would materialize beside her and peruse Ed's library before dematerializing back to the ether. And for a while, the Warrens just let the demonic Raggedy Ann and her black cat friend wander around the house, floating in and out of rooms.
Jeez, no wonder their daughter Judy didn't want to stay there. I can't remember, was there a black cat demon in the movies?
I don't think so. I mean, I could be wrong. It's been a while, but I don't remember that at all.
And unfortunately, Ed never says what this cat's name was, that I'm aware of at least. What do you think would be a good name for the familiar of a demonically infested Raggedy Ann doll?
That I feel like that question has to go straight to the listeners. Like we want to hear your responses. I would have to think on that one to come up with something really wonderful.
Not Mirabelle?
Ooh, that's my dog's name. She's pretty evil. That could work.
Yeah, your dog's as evil as Stephen King's is.
Yeah, exactly. Mischief. Oh, hold on. Is there a black cat in the Annabelle series? No, I didn't think so. But then I was like doubting myself because I do feel like, I was doubting myself because the plot of those movies are kind of all over the place. So it would be like entirely feasible that there was just like a random black cat thrown into there.
There's not much to it. You know what I mean? Like how you can take this story, they just show up and exorcise the place and that's it. Pretty much.
Yeah. Ed does say that one day he was hanging out with this Catholic exorcist, one Father Daniel Mills, informing him about the demonic doll. And the exorcist, in this moment of flamboyant ego, grabbed Annabelle, looked into her large black button eyes, and said,
You're just a rag doll, Annabelle. You can't hurt anything.
I'm just a rag dolly. He then tossed the doll back into the chair where it stared back with its malevolent eyes and painted smirk.
I'm so picturing my Max von Sydow from The Exorcist now. Face to face with this Raggedy Ann doll, bitterly telling it that it was nothing. And the doll's smiling back, and Ed told him, "That's one thing you better not say again, Exorcist."
Then at that very moment, Lorraine had a vision that the doll would cause the exorcist to have a car accident. And sure as shit, on the way home, the exorcist's brakes went out and he totaled his car. Or, if that's too boring, in another version of this story, a tractor-trailer slammed into him and tore the back half of his car clean off. And in this version of the story, the exorcist saw Annabelle in his rear view mirror just before being struck.
Ooh, I like that version. Where the exorcist sees her in the rearview mirror. That's the best. Very freaky, like a 1970s made-for-television movie.
Even hardened street cops were horrified by the demonic Raggedy Ann. Ed once left a detective he was working with to solve ghost crimes alone in a room with Annabelle. And when he returned, the detective was ghostly white, trembling and murmuring over and over.
The doll. The doll is real. The doll is real. The doll is real.
Eventually, Ed and Lorraine were forced to lock the doll up and not let it float around their house causing mischief with its black cat friend.
So sad. Poor little Annabelle.
They put it inside a consecrated glass case with a sign reading, "Positively do not open."
The case was infused with religious prayers and symbols to prevent the entity from manifesting or projecting its malevolent influence, and a Catholic priest was regularly brought in to bless it.
At some point, they put a tarot card on the door. The 15th card of the major arcana, the Devil, which they say was a protective measure to keep the doll's spirit from harming people.
Interestingly, the major arcana is seen as the journey of the fool, and traditionally, the devil card symbolized economic materialism. So, see that as you will.
And by the way, the Catholic Church has openly condemned tarot cards several times.
And then there was the obnoxious biker who fucked around and found out the hard way.
The story goes that a biker came to the museum with his girlfriend and had the audacity to laugh at Annabelle, strutting up to the case and knocking on the glass, saying, "This doll can't do shit. Go ahead, dolly, put some slashes in me. Go ahead."
Upon seeing this, Ed asked them to leave, not to mess with things they didn't understand.
The biker laughed at Ed and stormed out. And then, on his way home, driving through the shadows of the spooky New England forest, he lost control of his Harley, the bike slamming into a tree, killing him instantly.
His girlfriend, who had been riding with him, ended up surviving the accident, but according to Ed, she would be hospitalized for over a year due to the severity of the wound she sustained.
Sometimes you'll hear this same story, and it's obnoxious college kids, not a biker.
And so we have this tale that has so many contradictions, including the actual dates and names of those involved, but yet persists, having moved from a carnival freak show setting and into the very subconscious of humanity, becoming a modern folktale.
It is so fascinating from a sociological perspective, watching something become modern myth and folklore in real time. It's like A story so good that we just want to believe, and we will it into existence despite the obvious absurdity of it all.
And the idea of a haunted doll was by no means new at that time. There was, and still is, Robert the doll, who was given as a gift way back in 1904. And according to legend, the doll has supernatural abilities that allow it to move, change its facial expressions, and make giggling sounds, as well as bestow horrible curses that can result in divorce, financial disaster, auto accidents, and even death.
Quite curiously, there was a Twilight Zone episode released a few years prior to the Warrens' story, entitled Living Doll, in which the character of the mother is named Annabelle. In the story, Annabelle buys her daughter a doll named Talkie Tina, and after the father disrespects the doll, it kills him by causing him to fall down the steps.
When faced with all of this and the fact that I cannot find anything to corroborate any of this story myself, although I don't claim to be some investigator, but it doesn't appear the priest who called Ed, or the nurses, or the exorcist, or anyone at all has come forward to verify this story.
Scientist, writer, skeptic, and founder of Doubtful News, Sharon Hill investigated the claims about the doll and said, quote, "We have nothing but Ed's word for any of this. And like real-life Ed Warren, real-life Annabelle is actually far from impressive." Oof, damn.
Part of me thinks Ed and Lorraine may have just found the Raggedy Ann doll in a thrift store and thought, well, that thing is spooky as hell. Will look great in our new museum, which it does. It looks great in that glass case. Like I said, it scared the shit out of me as a little kid, reading that battered old paperback.
It's like a carnival show. The two-headed cow and the Fiji mermaid and all that. You know it's fake, but it's awesome and you can't get enough of it.
Chapter 4. A Dark and Haunting Past.
While the Warrens visited many places of supposed paranormal activity, they never charged for their services and never would. Eventually, they'd make a living through books and lectures. But in the early days, old Ed still had his day job of driving a transit bus in Connecticut.
Driving the bus, Ed noticed a troubled young girl that would ride home from school every day named Judith Penny.
Judith was 15 and a student at Central High School in the nearby town of Bridgeport, and Ed struck up a friendship with her, regaling her with his stories of World War II and ghost hunting. What today we would call grooming a minor for an illegal and immoral sexual relationship.
Two began what she called a, quote, amorous relationship, but we today would call statutory rape, as at just 15 years old, she was not able to give consent to a grown man. And by 1963, Judith had moved into the Warrens' home.
Ugh. For the next 40 years, she says she had a sexual relationship with Ed, and that Lorraine knew all about it and gave her consent to the affair.
At one point, the police would even be involved, documenting the disturbing relationship between a married man and a teenage girl.
Judith would go on to become Ed's assistant. There are photographs of them together, and she's even mentioned in the book The Demonologist.
She claims she loved Ed, that he was, quote, the love of her life. But she also says he could be a violent bully, that he beat Lorraine, once backhanding her so hard, he knocked her unconscious.
She says that Lorraine, despite claiming to be a devout Catholic, convinced her to have an abortion after Ed got her pregnant.
But if you want to hear more about that disturbing story and other absolute craziness, you're gonna have to tune in next week for part 2 of the story of Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Thanks so much for listening. See you next week.
And do you have a case you'd like us to cover? Did we get something wrong? Do you just want to say hi? Reach out to us at murdercoasterpodcast@gmail.com. That's murdercoasterpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week.
I'm just a rag dolly, happy and shining all day, a little